Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horror Not Oasis, the radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Ian. Ian, are you there?
I am here.
How are you tonight, sir?
I am doing all right.
That is great to hear. I know it's been one of those weeks, been busy, and a lot of things have been going on my end, especially. But I'm glad to get on here and discuss some horror. And we decided what better way to end the marathon than to do a double feature to conclude our Pride or Die marathon. It has been, I think it's been a pretty solid marathon, and I just decided, you know what, we need a little extra, so that's what we're doing this week, and we're going to kick it off with a small, rather short anthology film called Consequences of Monsters, a collection of queer bedtime stories is the tagline. And this one, again, I watched this after I watched Hypochondriac, so it was funny to see, as we mentioned off the air, some of the similarities that it had. But anyway, this one, it's it is rather short. It's like under an hour. It's like 50 minutes at most, and there's not really much in the realm of story without really getting into spoilers. But I'll just say, it starts out with like this broadcast, or this, it has to be a broadcast anyway, but like talking about like how people are acting and like what they do behind the scenes and what it eventually leads to in
Yeah.
certain individuals, and like they have to live with, again, their consequences basically. And we have like this detective doing the billboard with all the strings and the papers, thumbtacks, looking at things and trying to put a picture together of everything. And then we're introduced to our stories, which, again, I don't want to get too deep into the stories. The first one is about this gay couple, and the one is sort of angry at the other uh, person because of something that happened during a text conversation, a phone conversation that he overheard or saw, where, like, I guess they were poking fun at something, or they're trying to be, again, buddy buddy, but they came off more coy, and like they're just, again, he says, "Oh, it's nothing, baby. We're just making fun. See, I put LOL at the end of it. It says like get over it. There's nothing there. And of course, the one is like not having it, and he's like, again, playing hard to get in a way. Even though he's like angry at the boyfriend, he's still playing hard to get. Where like he's throwing things, he throws the phone. Um, then he's like pulling at the covers and stealing the covers, and then he's like telling him to get out of the bed, and then he takes the bed over his boyfriend's spot and steals his spot in the bed, and boyfriend's trying to get in the bed, pushing back over. So they're kind of, small little fight. It's not a full on fight, but it's just like a little being coy about things, and just like, but they get into the bed, and there's a sound that goes on downstairs, and the boyfriend that he goes downstairs to check it out, and then he comes back up, and that's where I'll end that story. And then we have um, our second story, which revolves around an older character. His name's Victor, and there's something that happened. I'm assuming he's a painter as well, which is, again, there's some similarities to both films of this and Hypochondriac,
Yeah.
in similar ways. But he's a painter, um, and he is. I don't exactly know the lady that comes in there, like it's just someone to look over him or someone related to his family, but something happened to his mother, and he's trying to figure out the reasoning behind that. And that's, again, there's something that happens, but I don't want to give away. And then it revolves. The next story revolves around young Victor. From the second story now as a young adult child. I'm assuming he's like 11, 12, some a little bit in that age range, 10 or 11 probably, and he's getting picked on. He's getting called names because he is, again, they're calling him gay and everything else like that. He doesn't, Victor himself doesn't come out and say it, but like there's scribblings of dicks and penises and gay boy and like written on the pictures that he has, and his mother's trying to tell him to go to school, and he's back talking his mother. He doesn't want to go to school, and then he's like dealing with the loss of his father, and at the same time he's hearing these voices and the stuff in his room starting to move as well. And so he starts having these conversations with this being in his room that claims to be his father, and what the being eventually wants him to do as that segment progresses. And overall, it wasn't a bad short series of an anthology. I honestly thought the first segment with the gay couple, with everything else, just didn't feel like it was needed. I'm not exactly sure what it added to the other segments with Victor and young Victor. It just didn't really like propel anything forward. Like it was just there. I just felt like it needed a little bit more. Needed something there to make it connect to the other two. I mean, it could have been there. I just didn't see it because they do kind of like look at a lot of zoom in on pictures. So there's like moments where like there's these pictures and like how everything interconnects. But I did like the young Victor, the third segment. I enjoyed where that went to, and how it was just kind of this brooding sort of story about loss and acceptance, and where what you're trying to do as a young child, trying to find your place in the world while being degraded and talked down to, and again, the loss of your father, and just your nagging of your mother, just wanting the best for you, but she doesn't understand what happens at school is different than everything like that. She just wants what's best, and just a lot of stuff like that where it's like really hard on a young adult like that, trying to find where you belong and dealing with, again, the monsters in your head and in your life, real and not real. So overall, again, I thought it was a solid little anthology segment. Again, I do wish it kind of went a little bit further with the older Victor, older Victor. Again, I liked where it went to. It just needed a little bit more story to bring it home, because it just felt like, okay, again, there's a whole, I can't really get into it without spoiling it, but there's something happens to older Victor, to where he's trying to, again, find out what happened to his mother, because that's what happens at the end of segment 3. There's his mother telling him to do something, and that's what the last time he sees her, apparently. And so it just like they could have, again, made like maybe just like 2 solid segments and took out the beginning segment, because again, I felt like that first segment didn't really do anything. It's just like, is this what the stories are going to be about? Just bickering couples, it just that first one just left a bad taste in my mouth. And then like it finally picked up with the second and third stories with Victor. Like they could have done something else to really, like make that come home, because again, it's just like, because you have that whole segment of like, it's just like Victor's story. And like, I don't know where that bickering couple comes into play, besides just the demon, the long nailed demon thing that's just there. unless that's like how it started. And like, I don't know. I don't know. But Ian, we'll give your thoughts and then we'll go back and forth.
I really enjoyed this little short. I kind of thought, this was definitely a very good companion piece to the other film because it kind of explores like similar themes. And I mean, as a person who has lost their father at a very young age, I felt a lot of sympathy and like this, but this short was like a little bit all over the place, and I felt like at some parts because I was just like, because it was so quick, everything happened so fast since it was a short. That I was kind of like, oh, and I like that he was like talking to that monster. It was like a lot of creep factor was happening. They did have a lot of like, this aura of dread that was happening this whole time. And I was like, it was just kind of like sucking me in because I was just like, oh, what is about to happen? And, he was like, I wanted to become the monster that ate my mother. And so I can see what it's like, and get closer to the creature. And I was like, damn, that's
Heavy-handed.
yeah, I was like, I was like, shit. I was like, okay. Both movies I felt like did the dread thing pretty well. But we'll get into the other one in a minute. But like, this definitely was worth the watch. I wasn't really sure about, what I was getting into with this. The name of it kind of, and it's being on Tubi. It's a hit or miss on Tubi, mostly misses. But this was, I felt pretty solid. Like everything had its place. Everything felt like nothing. I didn't personally feel like anything was completely out of place to the point where it derailed the film.
No,
Um,
I just
and
wish the first story was a little bit more cohesive into everything because it just, like I said, that one just left the sour taste in my mouth after the other two stories. Like I go back and think about it, like what was really the purpose of that first one? It's just like it didn't really do anything. Like you could have had more of. I mean, it's the whole collection of shorts does revolve around Victor as him as a child and him as an adult. So maybe they could have introduced like him as a teenager or something like that, and like
yeah,
it just felt like that one served no purpose really to everything else around Victor and like his bringing up. Like maybe like it just felt an odd choice to have that open everything.
yeah. I mean, maybe there is like a message that is being told. Um, Honestly, I kind of feel like this is a movie I need to watch more than once just to pick up like all of the hidden detail themes.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like I mentioned earlier, close up shots of pictures. Like that's how the end of the first segment ends, is like a very close up shot, and then later on, like in the third segment, that picture is shown again with young Victor. So there's something there. I mean, I can see it, but I just like it didn't really land as it should have, in my opinion.
Right. And, maybe upon another like watch or through or something, we'll find something that makes it make more sense. But, you know, especially I don't like I haven't really had a whole lot of time to think about the film because I just watch it right before I get on here. And I kind of like go over it in my head as we're talking. And I'm like, man, I feel like there was a couple of like strings that I felt like were there that I missed. But I loved the effects. I loved the monster being like this like devil on your shoulder type thing.
Father figure, trying to be a father figure, telling you what he
Yeah.
wants out of you and what you should do against your mother's wishes, and like, let me help you, let me show you the way type of mentality.
Yeah.
Putting uh, a lot of struggles on a younger child, and like growing up and trying to again find your own way with all the other things that are happening with your life, that he's dealing with at school, and his nagging mother wanting him to go to school even though he's getting picked on and bullied and called names, um, and just like he doesn't know, he's struggling, and so you have that, and then again you counteract that at a younger age, and then when he's an adult, and it just felt like there's like a dissonance between the young Victor and the old Victor, um, where it's just like whatever, he's just like, I wouldn't say dead to, well, sort of like that dead to the world mentality. They're like everyone sucks, you know, and I'm the only one that, just like there's a little disconnect there between young and old, and I felt like there could have been a little bit more there, that second story, if they like elongated it just a little further and gave us a little bit more, um, of what adult Victor is going through, instead of like showing all the struggle that he went through as a child. Like I said, like I think like if they did like the young Victor, not the young Victor, but the old Victor in the start, and then like middle Victor, young Victor, and then just like switched out the different years of Victor. I'm just saying, I thought it would have been much more accessible, to where like the story, it's all about Victor and just like the monster that he's dealing with. And again, it's just like that first, again, like you said, there could be some red lines that's just like we're not fully seeing at the moment. Upon another rewatch we might get it, and like I said, there's probably points of it that are there, with the pictures and stuff like that we're not seeing. But just like there needed to be another segment with Victor to really hone in everything, more than
Yeah.
just like a bickering couple for that first segment, really, because the other two, again, segment two, young Victor and old Victor, I really did enjoy those segments. So that first segment with the couple is just like, I still think like, really, what was the point of it? But again, that's just me.
No. I mean, I did, like I did enjoy like Victor becoming the monster, because I kind of felt like that was an allegory
Mm-hmm.
for being who he was. Um, I did find the him and the therapist, that was kind of weird, but it is, it wasn't bad.
And it's not the first. No.
Yeah, but I was just kind of like taken aback a little bit by it.
Yeah.
But everything just made me felt like they really did a good job at like making the uncomfortable parts uncomfortable.
Yeah, it does.
And I
Like
was
you
just,
said, like we mentioned, it with young Victor, it does get rather sort of dark with
yeah, I was
what
like,
the,
whoa.
yeah, because it gets a little, not pushing it for a child, of that age, and like this is what you need to do. This is what's going to make you happy. And like, what are you supposed to, like, again, it's just like the monsters, over your shoulder and just like telling you what you think you need when you don't need it. So it's like, again, there's a good metaphor there, um, of struggles and pain, and just like how the consciousness kind of brings these, all these things and metaphors to fruition.
It was wild to see that both movies had almost the exact scene for scene
Yeah.
shot. And I was like, whoa. When I got to that part, because I watched this one first, and because it was shorter, and then jumped onto the longer one, I was just like, whoa, I was not expecting them to be so similar. And man, was this is probably one of the best like double features we've had accidentally.
Yeah. We don't
I
have them that
wasn't,
often. Yeah.
yeah,
Where it's just
like
like
I was just
both
like,
films work.
yeah, I was just like, holy shit. I was like, both of them are like similar in theme, and it is just great. So,
And again, it's just like, hey, how would you like to do a double feature? I'm like, sure. It's just like nonchalant. We just decided to do a double feature, and it just like happenstance worked out in our favor. Similar theming. But yeah, like I said, it's a solid little watch. Again, if you watch it more than once, you probably get a lot more out of it. But for the two segments, like I said, the young Victor and the old Victor, it really does a solid job in that, of dealing with troubles. And again, as the title says, the consequences of, actions, and dealing with like the hardships and, of I wouldn't say coming out, but trying to be yourself, at that younger age. So it does a good job at that. Again, it could have been a little bit tighter in a few instances, mainly the first story. But again, I might not be seeing it with, as we mentioned, like with the first time viewing, and might need a second watch, to really understand the reasoning of that segment. But I did like the other two, and it's worth a watch. I mean, there's hardly anything on the film anyway, um, so it's good to get it out there, and maybe get some more traction to get some more eyes on it. Because again, it's a little, again, it has some rough around the edge moments, but I thought, again, for what it is trying to accomplish, it manages to do pretty well. It might be hit or miss in a few instances, but it's not too bad. Ian, your final thoughts?
yeah, no, like I think this was a solid watch. It's very uncomfortable. This is one of those movies I'm going to be like, this was kind of hard watch, but it was a good watch. Like I felt like nothing was done just for the sake of doing it. Uh, it was it shocking? Yes, but I don't think they were. It wasn't like a um, just trying to be edgy, shocky, kind of like just a one and done, trying to just throw something out there. Like they had a reason. They I felt like they nailed the execution of everything that transpires. And I don't want to give it away because I do feel like this is still pretty new, and I feel like, you know, people should give this movie a watch. I think it'll hit people a lot harder than they think it would. But yeah, that's my final thoughts on this.
All right. That is going to conclude our review of The Consequences of Monsters, a collection of queer bedtime stories. And we go on to our main review of the night, Hypochondriac. This one's from 2022, but honestly, I didn't know anything about it around, usually we know these, some films, but they just come and go. Apparently, this got some notoriety and buzz back when it came out. And again, you could the only place I could find this, and the only way we could watch it was on Fandango at home. which was a random place, which is actually the first time we used it for this review. So Hypochondriac, we are following Will, and again, like with Consequences of Monsters, the film starts out with a young Will, and his mother is like very happy. She's always videotaping him, um, and when he's a young kid, he's like wearing this wolf costume, and it comes into play a little bit farther into the movie. There's a meaning behind the costume, and his mother is just like a very happy mother, and she just wants, again, another one where she wants the best for Will and always trying to look out, but things are not doing well at, when it comes to family and her marriage. She's As the film progresses, we learn more pertaining to his mother and father and the backstory of what is going on. But eventually, what happens early on is that his mother sort of is failing and having psych problems, anxiety and psychological issues, where she tries to kill Will when he was a teenager, young teen, and that causes his father to put her in a psych ward to watch over. And now we have sort of a present day Will, where he works as this potter in this art. I guess it's like an art exhibit, but it's like, it's not a pottery barn or anything like that. But he creates, he does the pottery, and he's making various art pieces with his friend, and to do it because like there's a deadline coming up, and so he's just constantly churning out these pots, putting stuff in the kiln, and working with his friend. And Will is a gay individual, and he is dating a person named Luke, and they're really happy with one another, but Will is keeping all his secrets from Luke, basically. And so Will gets a call from his mother, which basically is the catalyst to bring back all the memories back into Will's back into his zeitgeist. And that kind of sparks everything, where he starts to also have hallucinations. He's seeing this wolf creature being, and again, it takes place to when he was a younger child, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But again, it goes back to when he was younger, and he's trying to cope with what is going on. Like, he doesn't know if it's real or if he's just working himself to death, or if it's something hereditary, and he's trying to get it checked out to, like, my mother had this, am I going to have this? So he's going to doctors to get ideas of what's going on. And a lot of, some of the doctors are kind of just like brushing it off. Like, yeah, it's fine. No big deal. Just take some medicine, do this, you'll be fine. It'll be gone in a couple weeks. And again, just like as the film progresses, he's going more and more losing his sanity, where he doesn't know what's happening, and he just wakes up and something's happened to him, and he wakes up like he's in the jacuzzi, and then like he breaks his arm, and then like he doesn't know like what happened after that, and like all kinds of stuff. Like, it's just really just like hammering down on him, like everything that's going on. And it just takes its toll on him, and he's just like going through his relationship with Luke, and then he meets back up again with his father later on to get more information about his mother, and then of course his mother gets involved as the film goes further along, and it's just like him just trying to figure out what is wrong with him. And it's a good, again, it's more of a psychological horror than it is full on, like creepy, horror or anything like that. It's not really unsettling or anything like that. It's just like psychological distress, and just like the manic episodes of oneself, and they don't really push the gay agenda in this one either. Sort of like how they did with, like, again, with Ladybug. It's just like he's there, like he's a gay person in a gay relationship, but it's not one of those where they beat you over the head with it. Um, it's just like, it's kind of what I thought would be the case when I read, the synopsis of the film. I thought like his parents were going to be the wolves that weren't accepting of his gay tendencies, wasn't accepting that he was a gay individual. It's definitely not that. So it was interesting to see that to go more the psychological aspect than the we're not accepting of who you are aspect. Um, but again, I didn't mind this one either. This one was pretty solid. It is I wouldn't say it's not exactly a slow burn, say like Ladybug, but it is technically more slow on the psychological side, as we're right there along with Will, and trying to we're side by side with him, trying to understand and cope with what he's dealing with, and the all the anxiety and psych issues that he's going with, and the troubles at hand of being tormented by the troubles that his mom gifted him, basically, and he's trying to overcome that part of his life, but it's something that he can't get over, and he needs help. And there's a lot of trying to find the right person to help you with the struggle of um, your psyche, and just hereditary issues of being troubled. But again, it's not gay troubled, it's psychological troubles. But again, overall, it's just pretty solid. I mean, there was parts where it's just, it's not the first time where it's like someone like has a family member, and again, I bring this up a lot because it's a film that I wish more people would talk about. It's called Family Demons, from Australia, and that one involved a girl that's living in a house with her mother, and her mother's ailing and going through health problems, and then the mother, like the daughter doesn't want to become the mother at all. Like she's trying her best to, she wants to go out and do something with her life and not become her mother, and like all the demons that her mother has sort of just like weighs down on her and causes her to go through this torment and uh, hallucinations and sort of possession in a sense of all the things that her mother has. And it's a solid movie, and like people need to check that out if you haven't seen it. And so like it kind of reminded me of that, but also a little bit like, again, like Jack Goes Home, with like where like again he's going home to, he sort of relives all the memories that he went through as a child growing up with the death of his father, and his mother's there, and like there's all these like recollections, and just trying to find a better place in a sense with that character. I think was it Kieran Culkin is in that one, and Lynn Shay as the mother, and like that one does a decent enough job. But I kind of, again, I wasn't the biggest fan of Jack Goes Home. It just kind of just meandered a lot. This one I thought had a more deeper meaning and message, and put a lot out there with the troubles and the the psychological aspects, and him talking to the wolf entity being, and so there's that constant bickering back and forth with himself, and like a lot of self-harm issues come into play as the film progresses, and just trying to, again, trying to find the right balance of how to pick up the pieces of your life from a struggle as a young child, young adult, and juggling them between everything, like the realization that your mother tried to kill you, and like the darkness coming back into your life where you're doing fine, and then just like the hereditary aspect of everything, and the psychological torture and torment and hallucinations and the anxiety issues, and struggling that with a relationship, and again, it doesn't have to be a gay relationship, just a relationship in general, and just like trying to find peace with yourself, with find peace with yourself and the monster that you're bringing with you. I thought it does a solid job in that aspect. Again, it's a little, again, it's not too slow. It's just more of a, just like we're coming along for the struggle and the anxiety of Will
Yeah.
and trying to understand his undertakings of this issue that he has to deal with. So we're just like kind of along for the ride as he figures out himself and what to do with himself, along with, finding peace and dealing with the monster at hand. But Ian, I'll give your thoughts and then we'll go back and forth.
This movie, I felt, was I liked it. I honestly I really enjoyed this movie. I felt like the themes in it were great. I felt like they hit on a lot of stuff. I did like the nods that they did a couple of times. Um the a couple of movies. One, the most obvious is Donnie Darko, like
Yeah.
100%. And that scene from fucking Ghost. But I enjoyed that because I was like, you know, it was silly, but like it was like he was starting to finally embrace his inner demons. And I mean, this movie is about identity and struggling with mental health issues and uh, childhood traumas and learning to open up and embrace yourself and accept others into your lives. And I thought it was a really well done film. Yeah, some parts were a little goofy, but like I felt like that was to kind of give the viewer a chance to breathe. And because like I mean, I was just like on edge for a lot of the film because I was just like, "Oh my god, this is like some pretty heavy topics to be discussing." And when I saw that, I just like I couldn't help but laugh, and I was just like, "Man, there's a lot of back and forth of like, like he seems like he's getting better, but then he gets worse again, and then he gets better, and then gets worse again." And I was just
Yeah.
like, it just kept,
Relapses a lot.
yeah. And I was just like, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. And like, and how fast things can change.
On a whim.
Yeah. And it was just like, I enjoyed it. I thought the ending was pretty decent. Um, and, but that's like, that last scene was just, honestly, I loved it
Hmm.
because it was like that ending scene probably is going to stick with me the most about this movie because of like the imagery of it was just so
Hmm.
striking. And I was just like, wow, like uh
Yeah, it's a
I
good
want to talk,
metaphor.
yeah, I want
Yeah.
to talk about it and say what happens, but like I'm
That's
not
one you
going
really
to
kind of need
because
to check out yourself.
yeah, that's
It's the
something
same
that's like
same feeling that Ian got.
I was just like, oh geez. I just like I said, I was just blown away by that. And like I liked that everything seemed a lot worse than what it was, at the same time as like when he was going through his psychotic episodes, and like the perspective, it was like it would be from one way, like one place, and then he'll wake up and then he's in another place. And I kind of liked that imagery as well. It's like here they had a psychotic episode and now everything's normal.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you live with yourself after going through something like that? And
Yeah.
you're just everything, you're trying
Everything's
to
falling
just,
apart around you, because that's again one of the things that's going on with like the relationship. Like they want to go to this, his boy Luke wants to go to this party or something like that, and like, oh, you want to go to the doctor, you just want to get out of it. You just hurt yourself to get out of it, and like I don't even remember what happened. It's just like just these breaks of trying to like cope with what's going on with your head, and like how
yeah.
the struggles are affecting everyone around you.
Yeah, and that's what I was just like. I was like, oh man, this it's like you can see like them slowly driving themselves insane, getting worse and worse because they're just refusing to open up about their problems and just making everything worse. And it's just the situation gets worse and then they get worse
Yeah.
mentally. And it's like you got, and like the whole movie's message of just like accepting yourself for who you are and letting people in who want to be there for you. It's just such a good message for a movie. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is a movie that I would 100% watch again and recommend.
Hmm.
Honestly, both of them. And I'll tell people watch both
Yeah, I mean, they're
because
like I
they,
said, like we mentioned earlier, they're a good companion piece to one another, even though you didn't expect it. When we picked the films, um, it's just like how both of them deal with childhood trauma and struggles and voices in your head telling you to do something. And
with different outcomes in the
yes,
end
exactly.
for
Uh,
the same problems.
so it
And
does a good job in that regard. Both of them do. Um,
yeah,
but again, I enjoyed the struggles. Well, I didn't say I enjoy, but like I dug the struggles of Will, and I like the idea of the wolf being and how it's more impactful on his life, where it's just like he doesn't know anything about it. Like, why a wolf? I don't know. And then finally, he starts to remember when he talks to his father, and like that kind of rekindles old memories. Like, oh yeah, and just like more stuff about his mother comes to fruition, and just trying to deal with this, just the idea of what his mother became and how he's trying to cope with it and not wanting to cope with it at the same time. Like he doesn't want to become like his mom, but it's just one of those
yeah,
things where it's just like it's gonna hereditary, and just like you don't want it to happen, but it's gonna happen, and you're just trying to do your best to deal with everything and what's going on, um, and the struggles you're trying to you want to survive with. And but yeah, it's a good allegory as you mentioned on this one, and they throw a lot out. They do throw a lot out there with Will and trying to what he subjects himself to, and all the time lapse, relapses that he goes through, whether he doesn't, whether he knows it's real or not real, and so we, a lot of stuff like that, and just the struggles that he's dealing with in his everyday life, and trying to find his way in a sense, and finally find the correct path to go down to live his way the way he wants to, um, with everything going down. So there's a lot of deeper meaning and messages to the film as well, and just struggles and traumas as you deal with as a child, and especially for Will's
Yeah.
case. And there's no, just like again, like the consequence of monsters. It sort of had a nagging mom. It was more of like the loss of a father, and this one is like having just like a hopeful father trying to protect his son while also dealing with a mother that wants to protect her son, but it's also having these um, mean or harmful tendencies, and just like those chaotic tendencies, psychotic tendencies, um, that's just rearing their ugly head again, and it's just like making everything worse than it needs to be. And but yeah, there's a lot there to enjoy in the film. I do think I'm trying to think a certain part here, but again, it's just for what it is. It does a good job of detailing like the struggles within oneself and just trying to cope with what is going on with your inner being, and like just like again, just like psychotic tendencies or a psychotic break, and you're just like trying to keep the lid on it, but it just keeps bursting. Like you're really you're doing your best, going to the doctor, getting medications, doing everything you need to do, talk to the loved ones, but it's just like that bubble is, it's just tightening up, and it's going to burst at any moment, and you don't know what's going to be the outcome. So they do a good job with that, trying to, he's trying to keep a good lid on things, but it's just like it's like the pressure cooker,
Yeah.
it keeps boiling.
Yeah, and the more he pushes to not deal with it or to but then that he's forced to deal with it, and the more he learns and starts, because all it started when, with his mom getting trying to get back into his life, and I feel like he pushed it more and more down to the point where he had a psychotic break.
Yeah.
And because of the fear that he has that he will end up like his mom, he made himself end up like his mom. And I thought that was just crazy, like how good how they like pulled that off. Like, and I loved, I liked the wolf aspect. I liked, yeah, I get the Donnie Darko references and stuff like that. But I'm glad that they leaned into that instead of away from it, because I feel like that made the movie have, more charm. Uh, so especially like when they were sitting on that couch together and they kind of look at each other, and I was just like, this is such good. Like he's finally starting to allow himself to acknowledge his problems, and I just, oh, I had such a good time watching this movie.
Hmm. But yeah, I don't really. There's not much to get into without going full spoilers, and I kind of don't want that. So I do suggest,
Yeah, I don't either.
if you want to go check it out, it's on Fandango at home. You can watch it for free, or you can rent it. Either or. It's worth a watch again. I don't know why it's only on there, but it is what it is. Um, Ian, we got any final thoughts before we go into our rankings?
Um, I think we covered everything that needs to be and could be covered.
Yeah, without going too spoiler heavy. And I don't. Again, we try not to be too spoiler heavy on stuff that, like sometimes we are, but like this and with like Ladybug, we kind of, the less is more approach, because we don't want to, you know it's worth a watch at least. And I believe I went last time during our rankings last month. So why don't you go first this time?
All right. This is, oh, man. Oh, damn. Because we got one extra movie. Shit, this is actually going to be kind of hard. Because I've been sitting there trying to think about it. And I liked a lot of these movies. This was actually a pretty good marathon. There was none that really like stood out to me that was like, oh, this is the worst movie. But I can tell you the top two, but let's see. You know what? Okay. I'm gonna go with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only 5 movies. I thought there was 6 for some reason. So my number 5, my last would have to be Scissor. I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as all the other films. Um, the next one would have to be Ladybug. Even though I really liked it, I felt like there was a lot of like just weird scenes that wasn't necessary. Um, Big Easy Queens would have to be number would be have to be on my number 3 or yeah because I really enjoyed it was the craziness of this movie. It was just silly, and sometimes that's what I love. They got zombies and drag queens and just all that. It was just chaos. Um, but my number 2 choice would have to be The Consequences of Monsters, and Hypochondriac would be number 1. I mean, hands down, this was probably the most meaningful movie on the list that had like a great message. It was just, I don't know, like I had such a great time watching it. Like I was like just enthralled the entire time. I didn't feel like anything was completely wasted. Um, yeah. But yeah, I think that would be my top 5. Um, but it was really kind of hard to think because I was sitting here trying to think about it all day of what my rankings would be, and it was just there was no movies that were just like so bad that I'm like, this is the place it needs to be in, because I feel like I could have moved around a couple of things and felt the same about it. Like this was I
Yeah,
felt like a pretty solid marathon.
yeah, that's how I am with my list. Like again, like a few of them can move here and there. I'm still kind of contemplating on a few, but um, again, it just depends on like where where I would feel that certain point of time. Like especially like earlier on in my top of my list, like do I want something more psychological? Do I want something five? Really, my 4 and 5 was like came down to like, will I ever watch this again? And looking at it, like honestly, I probably wouldn't. I didn't mind the film. I appreciate what they did with the film, the scope of the film, the look of everything. But with everything else that we've watched, it's just like, will I watch that again over the other films above it? And my number 5 is Big Easy Queens. I just like I said, I appreciate everything they were going for, but it just fell flat in my opinion for what I wanted it to be. Again, it's just like I shouldn't have had that mentality, but just I expected a little bit more out of it, and then what we got was kind of pedestrian and didn't really move me a lot. Even though again I like the look and the set of everything, and the lore behind the two bars or shows. Um, I didn't really. There wasn't a lot of meat on the bone for that film, in my opinion, for me personally. Um, my number four, again, I liked it. I just wish I had a better first act, and that was The Consequences of Monsters. Like I said, I liked the second and third stories. I just needed a little bit more with that first one, or to bring it home to make it a more fuller experience, more entertaining watch. But I just didn't, again, I liked parts of it, I liked aspects of it, but again, it had that same, and where it kind of was done a little bit better with another film that we already watched. Again, my two and three, this was where I was kind of like, I'm still not exactly sure, um, because again, I liked both films had things I enjoyed. One had gore, like in your face gore, but the story was very not there, with a lot of procedural stuff. And then of course the other one was, which we just talked about, was Hypochondriac. And it was just like, it just depends on the day, I guess, of like, what am I more inclined to watch? Do I want something more psychological, more deeper meaning, um, or do I want something in your face, shocking, torture and gore? And even though, again, I gave it high praise, tonight, I still have to put Hypochondriac on number three, because for some reason I really liked all the killing and the gore and the torture scenes. That's like you said, Ian, everyone has their simple, like you said with last month, like with the Monster on a Plane, you're simple. You just want a creature in a costume attacking people. It's simple. Like me, I want to see penises get cut off, and I want crazy gore. So my hypochondriac is number three, even though it could, again, you can switch that around, number, one and two, and scissors is number two, because like, again, I like everything with the scissors killer. I liked his mentality. I liked his viciousness and just his playfulness. I just liked the way he acted. Um, Even though the cop dialogue was really plain Jane and just didn't move anything forward, it just felt lacking. I thought the gore and the set pieces of scissors killing people, and the fish fish tank scene, and just like so many playful moments with someone's getting castrated, is just like, yep, that's all I need. So
Right.
scissors is number two, and my number one is actually Ladybug. I just enjoyed the story and being told. Like again, all the stories for this marathon was solid, but I don't know. I just like Ladybug. As it, even though it didn't have the best ending as this, as Hypochondriac did, I don't know. I just like the build up and the set piece, and just like the everything going on behind the scenes of that film. Um, again, the top three you can switch around, a little bit, and but yeah, Ladybug's my number one.
Yeah, that's. I honestly, I kind of figured that's where you were going to go with it, because I kind of liked the psychological aspects, uh, and I know you're a gory kind of guy.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like that. It's like, again, like
No, I
I've seen
get
it
you.
done before. Like I mentioned, Family Demons. It's like I've seen that done before, so it's not like new to me. But like, again, I appreciate the take and the spin that he did with Hypochondriac. It's nothing. It's like Ladybug. Like, you've seen it done before. I've mentioned with like Soulmate on that one, but it's just like sometimes, like you see something, every now and then you just want to see penises cut off, and like, yeah, you know.
No, I got you. Hey, we all
We
have
all
our
have our
niches.
vices. Yeah, we have our
Yeah.
vices.
If there's a puppet or a doll or a clown involved, I'm usually like probably going to end up pushing that up a lot higher.
Yeah, and if I see a baby get destroyed or killed, or penises getting removed, or something ridiculous like that, that's my bread and butter. You know, because I'm a sick individual when it comes to these stuff. But no, sometimes again, every now and then, something not gory or anything takes the ranks. But like, I do think it is a strong set of films that we have to deal with. Because like they all have their pros and cons. And again, like Big Easy Queens for me, it's not something that I gravitate to. That like I expected more out of it. Like I didn't hate it, but like that's just not really my wheelhouse. As say like I appreciate I like Slay much better than Big Easy Queens. But again, like that's something more along like the lines of something you would like. And the same thing with
Oh
like
yeah.
the psychological stuff. Like again, I like a good psychological horror film, but when I seen it done before years prior, like I can give it its props, but it's still like standing on the shoulders of other films that I've seen before. So as again, I give it props
Yeah.
and kudos, but every
That's
now and then,
where that's where being a still like not having as many movies under my belt as you do comes in handy.
yeah. But again, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I mean, I think
Oh
Ladybug
yeah.
and Hypochondriac are both solid watches. And
Yeah.
Scissors,
This
I
is
mean,
a tough one though.
yeah, like and Monsters too. Like Consequence of Monsters could have been solid, but like again, like which one's me personally, which one's going to take the cake? A severed penis, severed scrotum nailed to a wall is going to really take precedent over Consequence
Yeah.
of Monsters. But yeah, that's going to do our rankings. And Ian, again, it has been a solid marathon.
It
I'm glad
really
it
has.
turned out well for us. Like I said, the beginning of when we first started the marathon, we had a test run last year with Ganymede and Slay, and we decided to go full on marathon and the choices, and I thought it turned out solid. And we are going to continue our marathons as we always do for July for our Independence Horror Marathon, where we review low budget indie horror films for the entire month of July. And as I mentioned last week, it's going to be a little different, where it's going to be we're really committing to the act. This is no Tubi, nothing on Tubi, even though like Tubi's the land of the indie horror, but we're talking like stuff that you can't get right now. It's like director released stuff. So we are going to be doing that come next week. We'll have everything planned and ready to go for that weekend show for I think it's like the 4th of July. So we might do a July 4th show. So it'll be fun to do that. But Ian, as always, take care of yourself. It's been great talking with you all the time, doing these
Oh,
reviews.
likewise.
And take care of yourself, brother. And I appreciate everyone for listening, and to stay tuned for our Independence Horror Marathon starting next week. We appreciate everyone for listening, and we will see you next time here on Horror Night Oasis.
Good night, everyone.